Are you a wizard trying to wise up? A sorcerer slaving away at your spell list? Worry not. Here at Practical Pathfinder, we're going to figure out the easiest and most general way to take powerful and effective rank 2 and 3 arcane spells. Rank 2 spells are going to feel way better than rank 1. Frankly, they really love rank 2 for the arcane list. You get tons of damage options, you get tons of buffs, tons of utilities, tons of debuffs, and they're all good. The real problem with rank 2 is that there are too many picks, and even having narrowed it down, we'll have quite a few options. Whew. So, if you ever feel overwhelmed, just pick what sounds cool. Or check out our pre-builds. With that said, we're starting with damage. Acid Grip is the big pick at rank 2. This used to be known as Melf's Acid Arrow, and now is just Acid Grip, which it got even better. Acid Grip does a small amount of damage on hit, and applies a good amount of persistent acid damage. That's damage over time, and really nice. It works off a fortitude save, so it does damage even if they succeed on their save, and most importantly, Acid Grip physically moves and shoves the enemy even if they succeed their save. So it's force movement and damage in a combo. And because, again, it's force movement, Acid Grip counters enemies with the grab ability, enemies who grapple your friends and your party members and pins them down. Hit them with Acid Grip, give them a nice spicy damage, and also break that grab while moving them away. Even if they succeed the save, they can't stop you, and there's no size limit on Acid Grip. You can grip and shove a huge enemy, a gargantuan enemy. They can't stop you. It's good. And in terms of our other best value spell, Animated Assault is really strong. This is a reflex save sustain spell that creates a damage zone every time you sustain it in a specific spot. While smart enemies will simply not stand in the assault, if you have a choke point battle, say you're holding a door versus a wave of zombies, or golems or other dumb enemies, bring Animated Assault, turn on the blender, and let your brave heroes in the front hold up their shields while you just kind of crank that blender upwards and listen to the nice grinding sound. We're going to get a lot of that as we go through the higher level spells, but this is our first taste of it. And if you want something more bursty, Blazing Bolt's a very good second rank pick. Blazing Bolt targets armor class and hits 3 enemies to do high burst damage to each of them. This is your best raw damage spell for just bursting out into a small group, and while nice, is frankly going to be outdated by Fireball and Cave Fangs the moment we hit rank 3. So you really only get 2 levels of playing with Blazing Bolt, and after that, it's kind of meh. Brine Dragon Bile, however, is a spell that starts out meh and is incredible at high levels. This is a reaction spell that lets you spit at an enemy when a friend hurts them, and you get some extra damage out of it. It's more a case of, hey, I got second rank spells that I'm not planning on using. Let's take Brine Dragon Bile and get some free damage with them. Downside is, as I said, there's so many good second rank spells. I personally struggle to pick this one. And the other value spell is Floating Flame. Floating Flame is a crazy spell for long fights. You make a little fireball, it causes a reflex save on enemies who move into its square, or it moves to them. And every time you sustain it, the Floating Flame moves again, re-triggers damage over people. It's just going to add up. It doesn't do a lot of damage when you start it, but if you sustain it 3, 4, maybe 6 times in a really long fight, that is a wild amount of damage coming out of that Floating Flame. It's very good if you're worried about running out of spell slots in your day. If your game tends to have longer dungeon crawls and longer adventuring days, Floating Flame is the kind of spell you want. And last, if you want a little bit of debuffing at the cost of a little less damage, take Ignite Fireworks. You shoot a firework, does does a small AoE, reflex save, and it dazzles your enemies. Dazzle's a good debuff. It's not bad. Not my biggest pick, but if you want more of a mixed damage plus debuff, take this one. Well, the damage is pretty good. The buff spells of rank 2 are, whoo, wow, they're spicy. Let's start with the classic Enlarge. If you have a fighter, you have a barbarian, you have a champion, and you say, man, I wish my fighter was twice as big and could reach even farther. Well, buddy, Enlarge will make them bigger. This means your champion's aura covers more squares for more defense, your barbarian hits even harder, and your fighter can throw reactive strikes at range with a great sword. It's good on any frontliner. Buff them up and let them go to town. Now for a second buff, and this is one you won't use at low levels, but will probably want wands of at high levels, or spend a spell slot. False Vitality gives you some extra temp health for the rest of the day. Once you take a hit, it goes away. You don't have a lot as an arcane caster, so we take what we can for a spell that is great at low levels, Invisibility, the classic. You go invisible, you can't be seen. Now it lasts for 10 minutes, but breaks if you do an attack. So invisibility is not for combat, it's for scouting. It's for scouting, it's for escaping, and it's for role-playing. Role-playing is very important, so keep that in mind. I don't want to just say, take the best combat spells. Remember, a big part of a caster's strength is that you can use spells to get out of role-playing situations in a way that a warrior never can. No fighter can ever say, I'm going to sneak up to the princess's chamber and speak to her about her evil father, because the fighter can't turn invisible and just walk past the guards. A wizard can make your thief invisible and let the thief walk past the guards just like that. For something that is good in combat, though. Oh, and invisibility, by the way, use it at rank 4. It no longer breaks in combat and becomes a top tier buff. Loose Time Zero is not to be underestimated either. This is a 1-round AoE haste spell, which is wild for rank 2. It gives everyone you hit a free stride action. So the purpose of this is repositioning. Loose Time Zero is insane if you get ambushed, or if you have a reason that you need your party to be able to rush an enemy incredibly fast right now. You just cast it, they zoom, everyone wins. Propulsive Breeze is similar. This is a reaction spell, so again, not great at low levels, but good at high levels, where when an enemy moves, as a reaction, you can summon a wind to push them and give them a little more movement speed. It's that subtlety. If you like playing a Gandalf-type wizard who slightly alters the control of the world to make things happen just as they need, Propulsive Breeze is great for that theme. And Resist Energy is pretty classic. I think this is better at high ranks and low ranks, but it lets you take less damage from a type of energy damage, like fire, cold, electricity. This is mostly a spell for if you're entering a themed dungeon in your campaign. If you're entering the lava caverns, then maybe Resist Energy. Or the lightning forest. Yeah, maybe Resist Energy. Next, See the Unseen. This is also known as See Invisibility. It lets you, well, see invisibility. Personally, I prefer the debuff spell Revealing Light in combat, but this has values as well. It's more of a preference thing. And last, Water Breathing. This is not a spell you take slots in. This is a spell you buy a scroll of. Water Breathing lets you breathe in the water. Drowning sucks, and as a caster, I'm just going to point out, as a caster, you can't cast spells underwater. As per the drowning rules, if you have to speak, which you do to cast spells, you will immediately run out of air, go to 0 HP, and probably die. Water breathing enables you to help in a water encounter. Most tables, honestly, don't run a lot of water combat, but you don't want to be caught off guard in that rare water combat when it happens. If that's the case, take a scroll of water breathing. It doesn't cost a lot, and it'll save your life. Or at least save you from a very boring and embarrassing fight. The debuffs of rank 2 are also honestly very good. Every single one of them is good. As you can see, I recommend a scroll of any of these debuffs. They're all good to have just in case. Entangling Floor is a big area with a reflex slave to slow down enemies. If you're really lucky, even manage to, well, entangle someone and force them to spend actions to escape. This is a control spell through and through. I put it in debuff because it was appropriate. Use this to keep enemies from approaching you quickly, slow them down. It's great in choke points. It's great in narrow environments like dungeons, hallways, buildings. Not as good in the outdoors. Laughing Fit is a single target will save and sustained, but it is so good. It turns off enemy reactions even if they make their save. And if they fail their save, they become slowed 1. If you're fighting a boss or 2 elite enemies, you hit one with Laughing Fit. Anything that's a trained warrior, anything that shows it has reactions to hit you with its tail when your party moves, you give them a Laughing Fit, they lose a huge chunk of their power budget because they can no longer use any reaction, and your party can just beat them down. Always good, and it never runs out of value. This spell is good at level 3, and it's good at level 20. When you need it, you need it. That's why I recommend scrolls of it. It's good to take in your spell slots as well. A similar one is Revealing Light. This is a reflex save spell that is a hard counter to invisibility. Concealed and invisible enemies, you hit them with your Swords of Revealing Light, they turn off. You can see them, you can hit them, and they're dazzled. So they lose accuracy, you gain accuracy. Take scrolls of this, at least one, because when there is an inevitable encounter against invisible enemies, you want to have something you can do to help your friends. This is the perfect pick. And another pick is Stupefy. This is a will save that applies the stupefied condition, a rare condition that hard counters enemy casters, reducing their spell DCs, reducing their will save, and giving them a chance to fail spells that they cast. How good Stupefy is depends on the enemies your campaign likes to throw out. If your game master uses casters often, which personally I do encourage, but if they use casters often, Stupefy is a great spell. If they almost never use casters, Stupefy just isn't that good. Maybe carry a scroll of it for that rare caster enemy. And there's a lot of utility spells in rank 2 here. You see the problem with running out of spell slots? Burrow Ward is a spell you should never take in your slot and take only scrolls of. This hard counters burrowing enemies, enemies with a burrow speed that can dig into the ground, pop out, hit you, and dig back down. This lets you create a zone that you cannot burrow in, your friends stay next to you in the zone, and it forces your enemy to come fight you on even ground. Do you fight a lot of burrowing enemies at low levels? Probably not, but if you do, having one scroll of this kind of gives you a magic gun in the pocket, eh? Dispel Magic is really good. It's kind of a classic. This counters enemy buff spells. It counters enemy durations. It kind of just beats enemy casters. So again, if your game master uses a lot of casters, Dispel Magic is great. If they rarely use casters, not as good. This is a spell you want to take in your slots and upcast because it can only dispel magic roughly of its level. So if you're level 9 and someone casts a level 5 buff spell and you want to dispel it, you're going to need at least a level 4 version of Dispel Magic. Granted, there's a lot of buff spells, as we discussed at rank 2, that are really good, and those can be dispelled quite easily, no matter what. Gecko Grip is an interesting one. It also is known as Spider Climb, for those more familiar with the old ways. It lets you climb on walls. You need your hands free still for Gecko Grip. You still need a hand. You can't just walk up the walls with your feet. Keep that in mind. But it's good for exploring. It's good for role-playing. Probably not that good for a fight, but hey, climbing up walls, climbing on ceilings, surely you'll find a use for that. Hidebound is a very interesting spell and one of the few reactions I'd recommend at lower levels. Hidebound is a reaction where you give a friend, or I guess even yourself, resistance to incoming physical damage. This is not healing, but it may as well be because not taking the damage is even better than healing the damage afterwards. It's a great use for your spell slots. You can't go wrong with spamming out Hidebound. At low ranks, maybe take some power spells and then switch to this when you're higher level. And Knock, this is a scroll spell. Knock gives you a +4 bonus to unlocking a lock. Well, I say you, but I should say anyone who attempts to unlock the lock. So, your rogue, your thief, anyone with thievery, they need to open a door or a treasure chest, you use Knock. Man, I can't believe this is the narrowed down version of spells. Why did I sign up for this? If you want some good items for rank 2, the Wand of Tailwind at rank 2 is the #1 with a bullet. It might be a little pricey at lower levels, but you cast this every day, you get a +10 status bonus to move speed for 8 hours. That's your whole adventuring day. You're zooming, you're fast. It's just hard to beat. Outside of that, there's a lot of scrolls, as we mentioned. Revealing Light, Water Breathing, Burrow Ward, Laughing Fit, Gecko Grip, all spells that counter specific situations, which is great for spells that you might not use in a day, but when you want it, you want it. That's what scrolls are best at. Now, too much decision. Let's just get to the chase. If you want to blast things, if you want to blow people up, here's a great build. Take Floating Flame for consistent damage over time. Just keep ramming this thing into enemies over the fight. You'll do a ton of damage and not use a lot of spell slots. So what I recommend is, round 1, you cast Floating Flame on your enemy. Round 2, you sustain it and cast a cantrip. If you're close, Electric Arc. If they're far, Frostbite. And you just keep doing that until the battle is over. Simple? Yes. Effective? Absolutely. Second, Acid Grip. This does good damage as well, and more importantly, lets you reposition enemies at the same time. Pull them off a cliff, just ram them into a wall, force them out of cover, break their grab from a teammate. Force movement's really good to combine with damage. And last, Loose Times Arrow. You want a little utility even in a damage heavy build, and Loose Times Arrow gives you that nice AoE haste to reposition. As any caster, you're going to want to stay positioned in the safe range away from the enemy with your warriors in the front. This helps everyone shuffle around as needed and stay alive. Furthermore, tactically inclined, those who want to control the field, we have a lot of great picks at rank 2. It's kind of hard to choose. We're still taking Acid Grip because damage plus movement is just hard to deny. We're going to take Laughing Fit because turning off enemy reactions and possibly slowing them is crazy and will just annihilate elite enemies or trained warriors. And your game master's going to be like, oh, I thought this thing would be a problem, and now it can barely fight back. And we're going to take Enlarge. Make your frontliner, your warrior, your fighter or barbarian a happy camper, and they will just rip the enemy down for you. Perfect for the strategist style. All right, and for the big heavy hitters of the low levels, rank 3. Rank 3 is when spells jump up in power considerably. Rank 2 was good. You will feel the boost of rank 3 spells. Now, keep in mind, most casters don't get an improvement to their spell casting proficiency till level 7. So your spells jump up massively in power to compensate for your lagging saving throws. So you'll unfortunately get a couple more succeeded saves against your spells at levels 5 and 6. This is a fact of life. We're going to address it. It's a thing. But your spells are good, so that makes up for it a little. And starting with damage spells, there's only 2 damage spells to pick from here. Yeah, there's a lot of others. I don't care. Get those out of here. We're talking Cave Fangs and Lightning Bolt. Cave Fangs is better Fireball. It's a reflex save spell that creates difficult terrain. Does the same damage as Fireball, same size as Fireball, 20-foot radius, burst within 60 feet of you, and makes difficult terrain. That's crazy. It's a control spell, and it's a strong attack spell at the same time. I don't know how this got published. It's super good and just makes Fireball pointless. If you want even more raw damage, though, we're taking Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt does 4d12. That means it's kind of random, but really strong if you're lucky. You feel like gambling and hitting big, you take Lightning Bolt. Try and line up and hit 2 targets. Line AoEs are tough to hit more than 2 people with, so generally assume they're balanced for hitting 1 to 2 enemies. And even if you only hit 1 guy, Lightning Bolt still pays out the value. Now, while rank 3 damage spells might have 2 clear winners in the easy picks, the buff spells have quite a few changes, and they're all very different no matter which one you pick. Clairaudience has some huge scouting and role-playing value, allowing you to spy on conversations in rooms you're not in, listen to the innkeeper talk to the seedy spy, or the evil baron plot his tax evasion schemes, and you don't have to actually be there. Nice and safe. Or, in a dungeon, listen in past a doorway that you want to kick open and try and hear anything. Make some noise and you can hear if anything catches up and tries to start moving around. Cloud Dragon's Cloak, however, is a pretty interesting reaction. When someone gets attacked by ranged attacks, you can apply a 50% mischance. That's quite powerful. Like all reactions, I would not take this when I was level 5. But I would consider this at level 8 or level 9, maybe, when you have these slots to spare. Haste. Now, Haste is a classic. Haste gives you extra actions. Now, the person who's hasted can only use their extra action to stride or strike. This limits who it's good for. And why? The spell is best on classes with tight action economies who really wish they had an extra action to move around. Magus is one of the best picks for haste, and if you have one in the party, honestly pick up haste and slap him with it, and the Magus will adore you. It's pretty decent on Barbarian. Characters with big 2-action abilities that are expensive, they're going to want a haste to help them reposition for an ideal swing. But it's not that good on characters with efficient actions already. Don't bother hasting the ranger or the monk, it's not as valuable. With that said, shared invisibility is a non-combat buff that makes the party invisible. They all have to stay close, but invisibility is invisibility, am I right? For the personal buff, I can't go wrong with Time Jump. Time Jump freezes time and allows you to stride twice away from the enemy for a single action. This is fast, it's efficient, and because time is frozen, it does not trigger reactive strikes or reactions. This makes Time Jump incredible. We've been speaking that arcane casters have their greatest weakness of just getting beaten down because they're fragile. Time Jump keeps you alive to keep doing your thing. And speaking of staying alive, Wooden Double is a reaction that's quite similar. Wooden Double triggers when you get hit by a critical hit, and it reduces the incoming damage by a pretty big margin. At rank 3, it's a 25 hit point savings. That'll keep you alive another round for one more spell, and that spell might be all your party needs to swing the fight. Now, control spells are not quite as powerful at rank 3. The ones we have are good, but frankly, if you want to make difficult terrain, just pick Cave Fangs. It does damage at the same time. It's incredible. Outside of that, Aqueous Orb carries the control playstyle. It's a reflex save and is a sustained spell. Every time you sustain it, the orb, the giant water bubble, will move, absorbing your enemies like a twisted game of Pac-Man. And then they'll have to swim or escape to get out of the bubble. This wastes their actions, it makes it hard for them to fight, it really messes with casters because you can't cast spells underwater without drowning. So just keep blopping things in the bubble. Just keep doing it. Your game master will go, oh, that's really cute. But 2 or 3 casts in, they'll be like, oh, this bubble. Ooh. And Earthbind, this is a spell you should bring as a scroll. It is a spell that hard counters flying enemies, dragging them to the ground for your party to beat down. Though while control's a little anemic, the debuffs of rank 3 are insane. First, Mind of Menace is a very interesting one. This is a spell that lasts 24 hours and triggers when someone uses a mental effect on you, making it an incredible pick for a wand at higher levels. What it does is they make a will save and then become frightened, which, if you note, they're frightened, which reduces their DC, which means the mental effect they hit you with is easier to resist. It protects you and it hurts them. What's not to love? Roaring Applause is the better version of Laughing Fit. It's identical to Laughing Fit, a sustained will save, but it also triggers Reactive Strike because it counts as a manipulate action. If you have a fighter on your team or anyone who takes Reactive Strike, you should bring Roaring Applause over Laughing Fit. Slap an enemy with it and you get a free fighter swing every round. Oh, just that easy. It's just good. Shadow Projectile is a rather team comp specific reaction. On a will save, when a friend shoots at an enemy with a projectile, you can create a new projectile that, if your enemy succeeds their will save, they're off guard to your friend. This is insane for rogues or gunslingers. If your enemy fails the will save, they also take damage from you. You won't get the damage every time, but it's mostly to apply the off-guard condition for your friends. And slow. Oh, here it is. Here is the big rank 3 debuff. Slow is a fortitude save spell. If your enemy succeeds the save, they're slowed 1. If they fail the save, they're slowed 1 for a minute. Slow is wild, because if you're fighting a single boss, hey, I cast slow, and you just look at the game master and you say, all right, 40% chance we win the fight because the enemy just straight up loses a third of their actions. Think about that. What the heck? That is, it's not quite a save or die from the old days, but it is really brutal. And at rank 6, slow is even more wild because it becomes an AoE spell that multi-targets. You now just slam the entire encounter, no one gets actions, your team's going to crush them. Now, if you're looking for things to buy in terms of items, Clairaudience is a great scroll, so is Earthbind. They're situational, but again, like all the best scrolls, when you need it, there is no one and nothing else that can replicate this kind of effect, so you'll be really glad to have it. Shared invisibility is similar if you have situations where your entire party wants to sneak through something. It allows you to do that safely. And Mind of Menace, when you can buy wands at rank 3, this is a great pick. Just counter enemies using mental effects on you. The end. Now, for our damage aficionados, our heroes who want to melt their foes, I got you. The blaster build is as simple as it can be. You take Cave Fangs because it's Fireball but better. You take Lightning Bolt because it does a lot of damage. And you take Slow because it's really funny seeing an elite enemy, or better yet, a high reflex fast enemy go, ho, I will dodge your Lightning Bolts. You'll never take me down. As you just slow them down and you're like, this one's kind of tough. All right, party, clean him up for me. He's done. You'll feel strong. It's easy. It's simple. You are a master of AoE damage, and now you're going to feel like it. And for our more control-minded friends out there, our strategists, you're still going to take Cave Fangs, because guess what? It's better Fireball with difficult terrain. That's just good. It is a control spell. It is a damage spell. Soften up the enemy. Also separate them. It's wild. You're also going to want Roaring Applause because it's better Laughing Fit. Now, if you don't have anyone in your party with reactive strike, if you don't have a fighter or anyone with that ability, don't take Roaring Applause. Go take Slow. Go take a different spell, okay? You can just use Laughing Fit at that point. But, oh well. And last, you're going to want Haste. Your party loves buffs, they love a haste. This is a very good spell because when you're in a big situation, you're like, if one of my friends could just get an extra strike, get that second swing in, or if my friend could get an extra move and really reposition, haste is how you do that. Don't discount it on casters either. An extra move action on a bard or any other caster with a good third action, even if it's just sustaining a spell, this unlocks the ability for them to move around and they're going to feel way better. With that, I hope you're feeling a little more confident about your magic picks. Remember, these spells are only as good as your party composition, so be sure and talk to your friends and figure out what holes the party needs. What gaps can you fill? A caster's power is in their flexibility at the end of the day. Be sure and leave a comment if there's any spells that I missed out on that you're a huge fan of, or if you hate any of the spells I picked. And like and subscribe, and we're going to get back with more Practical Pathfinder and effective tips. See you next time.